only honorable people feel shame. The shame that you feel, which is between you and you, nobody else even has to know it happened. Different than shaming and shame on you. That's manipulation. We're always trying to get you to reveal yourself while having proven we will use it against you. I'll go tell somebody else what you told me so they'll know how special I am that you told me, not knowing that that revelation is a betrayal.
How did you get in the heads of males? Speak as if you were one.
I was. I learned about all men that caring is your biggest expenditure of energy. No one can make you care.
What is it like raising children as you?
Whose life is it? Just because you came out of my body does not make your life belong to me. I don't think they owe me anything except for certain forms of respect. Parents are behaving in shameful ways and yet demand respect because they are your father or your mother.
Is it hard to find a partner that you're better off being in that relationship because you guys are amazing on your own?
My list has 19 ways of being and 23 behaviors and attitudes. Dan, from the very beginning, he already was all but 6 of them. Relationships are fulfilling as much by what we get to give as what we're given.
Thank you so much, Allison. I really appreciate the time that you're taking to do this. How I first came about you was, I think I was just on social media and I saw that clip that went viral, the one about men feeling shame. I don't know if you know the clip I'm talking about. It went super duper viral. It's just, I just keep seeing it. I guess like tell me about that moment. Did you have any idea? Do you know how viral it went? Did all of a sudden your inbox just get full after that?
Well, actually, I don't know what the quantification of viral is, but I think the one you're talking about, I was talking to Josh Trent. Can you tell? Okay. So that was with Josh Trent, and that was in the middle of a conversation about the stages of development and in the transition from prince to king, how men, the first thing they're present to is how they've adapted and being ashamed of how they sacrifice themselves to get the approval and the respect of other people. So that was taking off at the same time that this little clip about men being ready to get married had like 3 million views around Thanksgiving on TikTok. And then right after, like 2 days after Thanksgiving, Chris Williamson posted our 3-hour interview. And it just seemed like everything went bananas after that. I can't keep track of any of it. And, but it's fun. I mean, it's fun to get to contribute to people and to sort of like a little wake up of, huh, what? And they're all really important topics, but 1991. So we're going on, it's 35 years next month. And I thought it would take 2 or 3 months to learn everything worth knowing about this shallow, feelingless, superficial gender. And instead, I've just been fascinated for decades. And I'm not even close to the end of the frontier. And I'm your biggest fan. From everything that I've learned. And because the brain learns by the perception of a difference, everything I learned about men, I would go, how come women don't know that? Oh, because women do this. And so I ended up basically studying both genders just by inference and reference. And it's quite a ride. It's really quite a ride. But social media it's such a funny place. You know, I've given up. Well, I've let go of trying to control it in any way, including being misrepresented, misquoted, taken completely out of context. What I teach used to prove somebody else's opposite point of view. Like, it just, some of the things could be horrifying if I took them personally. But that's one of my practices, not really to try to not take anything personally, good, bad, or ugly.
I love that
Is there
journey.
something that you want to share that you got out of that clip about shame?
Yeah, I think when I heard it, I would often, like when I would feel a bit shameful, I feel like maybe went a bit too far. I always saw that as a negative thing, but hearing your clip, it sort of gave me a bit of optimism and sort of belief that, hey, maybe the fact that I do feel shame is a good thing. Maybe it's a sign that, like, hey, I'm actually happy that I'm hard on myself, and maybe it would be a bad thing if I didn't feel shame. So it gave me permission to feel that way.
Wow. Yeah, one of my conclusions is only honorable people feel shame. And also men hold themselves accountable for so much more than women could even guess, because we try to hold you to account for acting like a woman would. And most men won't let that happen. And I'm glad. It's very important to not let that happen. Because if you do, you'll end up being self-emasculating. You'll disempower yourself. But because men won't be held to account for not acting like a woman, women think you won't be held to account for anything. And what I've discovered, you literally have Superman or godlike standards, like what you hold yourself to, what you ought to be able to do, how you ought to be able to take care of other people, your level of excellence. It's astonishing and it's beautiful. And from my point of view, we shy away from shame. I mean, I think it's one of the three most horrible feelings a human being can have. And we tend to, like, whatever caused the shame, we want to just stay away from that. But if we turn and look into it, whatever we're ashamed of, like what we're ashamed of failing at, well, those are the things we're really committed to. If we weren't committed to that, if that was an expression of ourselves, of who we really are, then the failure would be no problem. But it's because of what it means to you in the expression. And I think you know, Andy, that I distinguish between the shame that you feel, which is between you and you. It requires no audience. Nobody else even has to know it happened. This is completely different than shame-ing and shame on you. And no, 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 no. Like, no, that's just that. That's manipulation, like one of the worst manipulations we can have. So shaming, hold your boundaries, refuse it absolutely. When you feel that horrible feeling in your gut, okay, what did I fail at? Or how did I betray my own values? Oh, wow, that's my standard. Oh, okay, can I forgive myself? Do I forgive myself? And there's the miracle, is when it takes courage to forgive yourself, because as soon as you forgive yourself, it's like life is listening. And when you forgive yourself, it's like, so what are you going to do now? Right? Like it's just like this pull to commit to something greater, right? Like it's so natural to just like, okay, I'm going to do better. And sometimes the better is huge, but it's always, if you've forgiven yourself and it's not like penance, okay, I'll be better at that to make up for how terrible I was at the other thing. That would be penance. No, if it's true commitment, I'm doubling down on this because this is who I really am, then it's tremendously empowering.
Allison, how did you understand? How did you get in the heads of males? Like, how did you so perfectly speak as if you were one? Like all the things you're saying, I think a lot of males are listening, like, whoa, like that speaks directly to me.
Yes.
Yeah, how did you get to that place?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't often talk about this, but you started it. So I'm gonna go there. So it comes from many places. One is when I first committed to finding out if men were responding to women, and if so, what was it in a woman that a man was responding to? I had three men who were my clients. They were all single entrepreneurs. They were consultants and coaches and authors. And when they would do something that would surprise me, I'd try to figure out why they did it. And then I'd verify it with them, this is one of the most important things we can do is, it seems like you did that because of this. So the seems like is important, whether you're talking to a woman or a man, because the seems like allows for, I'm willing to be wrong. Instead of you did that because you're just like, no, that's not going to go anywhere. So I would check with them. Did you do that because of this? And for literally for years, I was wrong. And I was not just a little wrong, I was really wrong. Like they would, the first time it happened, the man, his name is Brooke, he said, "Oh God, I would never do anything for that reason, and no self-respecting man would." And I was shocked because the reason that I'd given him that he'd done something he didn't want to do for his mother in order to not upset his mother. That's a perfectly acceptable reason in virtually every woman's world. We avoid other people being upset as much as we can. And he was like, "No, I never would. I never do something for that reason." Well, then why did you help your mom when you didn't want to? And he said, and he gave me this lesson on loyalty, duty, his own sense of I am her son, therefore. And so it first shocked me that it's not why a woman would do it. And then to find out that men have standards of behavior that you've decided you owe someone because you are their brother, sister, friend, citizen, employer, employee. Like, because of that, therefore, this is my duty. And our culture tries to impose duty, tries to instill duty. Parents try to instill the duty of taking care of your parents. And that's not what I'm talking about. Just like I'm not talking about someone shaming someone else. It's your own decision. This is my duty. And it's an important thing to know when someone is doing something purely out of duty because they're always only going to do it to their own standards of duty. They're not going to go beyond, and they'll keep doing it until and unless the other person does something that has them be like, well, if I was going to swear, I'd say the F word. I don't care if it's my duty. I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. I've had it. And that can happen. And then that can end up causing shame, right? That I'm not fulfilling my duty. But when I think about doing it, I have this aversion that seems bigger than me. And I've actually been resolving that for myself in the last few months because until last summer, I hadn't voluntarily spent time with my mother for over a decade. And I had to do a whole lot of work, a whole lot of healing, and a whole lot of releasing the aversion to her ways of interacting with me and realize I could just hold my boundaries. I don't I don't have to have that. I can cut her off instantly. And now where I am right now is a 10-minute walk from her house because I check on her every day to make sure that she's okay and that's what I like as a daughter, that's a good daughter thing to do. There's a wholeness in me. Like when I wasn't even willing to do what I considered my duty. Like she'd lost that. All her lies lost her that opportunity. All her manipulations lost her that. And even to forgive her that and do it according to my own standards, honor myself. It's a way of honoring myself, which is one of the things that we're teaching all the time. Honor yourself first, or all is lost. So one way to answer your question, I knew there was some place to get back to. So one way is from interacting with men directly, one-on-one. Another was when we started our workshops in 1995, having panels of men come in and respond to questions that the women had written down. And then that evolved into the co-ed Understanding Women workshop, where I finally knew I could translate a woman's reality into a man's reality. And so I'm interacting and teaching men and women about women and contrasting them with women's behavior. And the earliest version of that is on Audible, but that's when I only saw women as in what I call gathering mode or as gatherers. And then so many women told me that they find themselves hunting more than gathering that I had to delve into it further and I redid the whole thing. And so the most up-to-date one is on our website. It's called Understanding Women. And but then to when you said it's almost as if you were one, I was. I, I'm, some people believe in past lives, some people don't. I was just a little girl when I found out about reincarnation, and it made sense of how much I didn't fit. Like it just made sense of how I didn't fit in where I was. I didn't fit in at my age. I was accused of being precocious and way beyond what I should be thinking about and talking about. And I didn't know how I knew what I knew. I just did. And then after I was really engaging and learning about men and teaching about men, then were asking me questions that I'd never asked men. And it was just a reflex. It was this, I didn't think about doing it. I just did it reflexively. I remembered being a man and I thought, did I ever do that? And I remembered doing the thing they were asking for. And then I asked myself, why did I do that? And then the answer was like, whoa. And then I would take that answer and I'd check it out with so-called real men, incorporated men. And it was true. That thing that I saw in that moment of getting in touch with, honestly, I think I've spent more lives as a man than as a woman. And I had to I had to learn how to be female, which I didn't start doing until I started studying men and realized that I didn't have to always be the guard on the post, protecting and providing for myself. That I was surrounded by these amazing people who wanted to give that. And if I was always on the post myself, they never got to express that part of themselves with me. And that's when I started shifting. That's when I started investigating what some people call femininity, what I would call an open state of mind, being receptive, like the shape of a woman's body. It's an unoccupied space. We're receptive, while a man's body is make way, very proactive. Just think of genitals and you can think of the energy that goes with it. And yeah, so that's what I've been doing since I was 30 years old. And I thought I'd get to the end of it, and I'm not even close. You all are fascinating. You're so much deeper and richer and more emotional. I swear men's emotions are bigger than women's, and the depth of feeling and all the things that most women don't know about men, because instinctively you conceal anything that can be used against you. And we're always trying to get you to reveal yourself while having proven we will use it against you. If you tell me how you feel, then I'll say, well, if you loved me, you would. If you really cared about me, you would. We try to use it. And so no wonder there's so many things that men don't reveal, or the biggest reveal that women don't know about, that it's a betrayal. And that is, if you tell me something intimate about yourself, special about yourself, I'll go tell somebody else what you told me so they'll know how special I am that you told me, not knowing that that revelation is a betrayal, that you just told me. And so I had to learn early on to ask permission. Can I quote you? Can I quote you anonymously without any indicators? Can I, right? Like check. And even my late husband, when we would get into a big kerfuffle and when it was all resolved, he'd look at me and say, this is going to be in a workshop, isn't it? And I had to learn to say, is that all right with you? And I only remember one time he said no. And I was like, okay, then that's in the vault. All the other times he would say, if you think it'll help someone. If anyone goes to AlisonArmstrong.com and watches Understanding Women, sometimes you'll see the one of the camera angles picks up Greg, my late husband, sitting at a table in the back of the room. And he's, either cracking up or he's looking at me the way that he always did, with just this absolute love and support, and thinking I was the most fascinating person on earth. So funny. I was very blessed.
Thank you, Allison, for sharing that journey that you went through. Just off that, I sort of like wrote down, I think, I think that's 9 different ways we could take this. So I'm trying to pick the best one.
I'll
I
go
just
wherever you want to go.
I'll follow my gut feeling. So ever since I was young, I started working when I was 14, working at McDonald's, working at Kmart, saving up money, and I would always just give the money to my mum so she can hold it on to me in case I spend it to, in case I was I don't know, in case I lost it all. Over the last 2 years, business has been very tough. So I've been bleeding out, running out of money, and sort of slowly asking, my mum for that money back. Now, I think I'm down to like 15,000 that she holds for me. And I was like telling her how I might need another 5 grand to make payroll this month. And every time I ask for my money back, she just makes me feel horrible. Now the pre-context is I know everything she says is out of love. She loves me. She's worried for me. But in the moment when she's saying stuff like, Andy, I thought you were supposed to be the man. You're the oldest son. You're supposed to be looking after the family, not taking away from money from us. All my co-workers, think that you cover all our dinners and all the holiday trips you've paid for us, and look at you now like asking for money back. How embarrassing it is. Like, why don't you like go get a job? And like I would just feel like I'm just like I get so angry, and then as I'm going home I'm just like so angry that like, man, like my own mom doesn't believe in me, doesn't support me. I'm like, can't she see I'm trying my best to make this work? And when things do work, like she's the one that like I want to give everything to and make sure that, she's the one that brought me into this life. So, she deserves the world. But here she is just berating me. I don't know if I have a question or yeah, a question, but I guess I do know she's just coming from a place of love. She doesn't mean harm. She came from a place where she was an immigrant from Vietnam. So if she was in my situation, what she would do would be getting a job, would be taking the safe route. So she's just giving me her genuine advice on what she would personally do. And she doesn't want to see me broke. She doesn't want to see me lose it all. So I know it comes from a place of love, but man, that night I was so angry. I held it in. I went home. And yeah.
May I offer something?
Yes, please.
I don't have any doubt that your mother loves you. No doubt at all. And human beings have two different nervous systems. We literally have two nervous systems. We have different parts of our brain with completely different levels of function. And I don't think what your mother said comes from love. I think she loves you. And what she said comes from fear. And it's the fear that we have as we get older that of who's going to take care of us. And if our children are struggling and we feel like we still need to support them, then what's going to happen to me? And they're instinctual thoughts. And then there's also, besides male and female and instincts that are shaped by gender hormones, which shape the brain, there's also, we have herd and pack instincts. So herds are made up of prey and packs are made up of predators, and human beings are both predators and prey. And you can see packs of young women, by the way, they're like clearly predatory, right? And you can see men who are like stallions, making sure all the women are safe, like circling, checking the news every day for what could threaten the entire family, the entire tribe, right? And in both pack and herds, in both of those paradigms where we survive as a group, okay, we depend upon each other for survival, there are like strong isn't even a big enough word for it. You could say intense, overpowering concepts of status, and that our status in a herd like in a herd of horses, the status literally determines who gets the best feed, who gets the best water, who gets the best shelter, and I'm not kidding, who gets to breed. This is also true in wolf packs. Unless it's an incredibly abundant year, only the alpha male and female get to breed. And like in their troops of river monkeys, where the highest status monkeys get to fish, the safest place in the river, where the lowest status monkeys have to fish where the alligators are. So so it literally determines our chances of surviving. And so, like, your what your mother's worried about is it like if you were paying for everybody's dinners and vacations and successful beyond her wildest dreams, she would make sure everyone knew that because that would elevate her status. Can you see it? Yeah. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how she expresses being afraid by translating it into pressure on you to do what she thinks you should do so she won't be afraid. And unfortunately, when we don't own our own fear, which we often don't, we speak things as if they're inherent goods, as if they're right, right? The right thing for you to do, Andy, is to get a job and support your family. Well, I was amazed that your mom actually saved all that money for you. Like, I was afraid you're going to say, and she lost it, or she gave it to my brother, or she spent it on something else. And then you said, when I asked for some of it back, like, oh, so the bank of mom, it's your money. Like, you've been saving for this since you were a little boy. Of course you should have it back. But I have a different orientation, right? And cultures have a lot to do with those orientations and that imprint of your duty to your parents, for example. And there's so many different cultures in the United States that you can encounter that, or you can encounter young people who don't think they have any obligation to their parents, and parents who will sacrifice everything for their kids, and parents who will use their kids endlessly. Like it's just, I'm a big believer of we choose what we're born into because we're looking for the lessons that being in that environment with those parents and those siblings will have us learn. But gosh, it isn't ever comfortable. I don't think in any one of those positions. A parent who's overbearing in giving everything and won't let us stand on our own, or the opposite. We all have to find our place. My mom tries to manipulate me by saying, "Oh, I don't have any money for that." And then she'll leave this like pause, like hoping that I'll step in and offer. And I used to always step in. And now I look at like, will I resent that? Is that something I want to provide? And I like choose piece by piece. And just like I would with someone on the street asking for me for money, I would look to myself to see what I wanted to give. And it might be a lot or it might be nothing. Right. So where do you want to go from here? And thank you for sharing that. I've been there. I've really been there. I've I've asked my mother for money to make payroll. It's been a couple decades, but I've asked, and she said she would. And then she reneged and didn't even apologize for reneging, how much it meant to me. Payroll's an interesting thing, the honor of an employer, right? The honor of an employer and taking care of the people who've worked for you and holding ourselves to account for that. I've interacted with that for 30 years. It's a heck of a muscle. My company will probably pay back my children for my efforts. That's, yeah, and maybe even my grandchildren will benefit by my work. But I needed to take care of my team. And I was lucky for so long because my husband didn't ever expect me to make any money. he wanted to support me in what my life is about. So, I mean, I've said it so many times, like the Queen's Code and everything that I've put out there in the world would not exist without Greg's support. I mean, I told him on our first date that I wanted to have a foundation that would support people doing good work in the world. And I found out later he thought I want to fund it. Neither of us knew that he'd be funding me. He'd be funding my good work. But he did. He did for almost 30 years.
That is so beautiful, Alison. What is it like raising children as you? Like, how are your kids old? Because I feel like you have this such vast wisdom that they might all be, maxed out on the EQ score.
Well, so I have three children and one grandson, and uh, my youngest will be 30 in a few months. And so from 30 to 37. And they are, it's so fun how they discover how they're the same and how they're different, right? And ones that didn't get along as children finding out, oh, we're a lot alike. And I, because of what I was studying with men and women, I started paying attention to gender differences when they were young. So my son was almost 3 when I made a vow to not emasculate men. And I had been actively trying to carve the man out of him up until that point. And then my youngest daughter, she was probably maybe 9 or 10 when I was talking to her about differences in single focus and diffuse awareness, and we agreed that if I interacted with her as if she were male, that we would do better. She looked like a little fairy princess. She didn't have little like pointed little elf ears, but she's a scientist. She thinks absolutely like a scientist, and she hates to be interrupted. And she wants every topic to be completed before you move on. And and so I honored that, right? And it worked. But I think, let's see, it was probably our company's called PAX Programs, and the P stands for partnership. And it's my partnership is my passion. And and we've distinguished 14 different elements of partnership. And one of the elements is accountability at choice. So not what you're being held to account for because someone has inferred that about you, right? You are X, so therefore I can expect Y from you. But actually that every person chooses, I want you to count on me for this. I want to be accountable for this. You can hold me to account for this. If I don't do it and you hold me to account, that will feel like respect, like you actually know who I am. So I started practicing partnership with my kids when they were young, including things like one of the things that's important with partners is to restore each other, because it will completely fall apart or blow up if, for example, someone experiences being disrespected and the other person never owns it or apologizes for it, or someone gets really hurt and the other person won't say, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. Like if we teach this in Understanding Women, and in something called Celebrating Partnership. And so part of partnership is a commitment to restoring your partner, because you're only ever going to be as powerful as each of you are, and then how you put that together. And so in raising my kids, not only did I require that they show respect to me in very specific ways, I also apologized for disrespecting them. And I would ask them to say they were sorry for hurting my feelings. And I would say I was sorry for hurting their feelings. And I would make promises to them. And instead of just trying to get away with not doing it, like maybe they forget, I would clean up with them. I said I would do that and I didn't. And I'd like to make it up to you by this. And I would hold them to doing what they say. And so they grew up in this environment because their dad, because Greg was very much on board with me this way. Um, they grew up in an environment where they weren't treated like they were less than. There wasn't because I say so, right? I'm the dad, and it's your duty to obey me because I say so. No, we didn't do that. And when it came to protecting their safety, there were some real boundaries. And we called Greg the chief of safety because he had much stricter standards than I did. He perceived danger where I didn't. And when I thought about what it would be like if I kept arguing for something that would be more dangerous from his point of view for our children, that would be a great way to make him crazy. Like that would be a way to have him on edge all the time, that he couldn't trust the mother of his children to protect them. And so I went the opposite direction. And that's why we called him the chief of safety. And the kids would come to me and say, "Can we do this?" And I'd say, "It's okay with me, but we got to ask the chief of safety." Or as they got older, "Can we do this, Mom? Did you already ask your dad?" And if they lied about him saying no, if they didn't reveal that Dad said no to this, but we're hoping you go to bat for us, which I did a couple of times. But I went to Greg. My daughter wanted to go to Europe with my mother. And I thought it'd be a really good trip for her at that age. But I learned and I went to Greg and I said, "Okay, you have the veto. You're the chief of safety. You have the veto. And I'd like to tell you why I think this would be good for Claire and find out under what conditions would you allow it." And he told me later that it turned out because I started by saying you have the veto. There was nothing he had to defend. I was already protecting his boundaries and his right to set them. And then that allowed him the space to consider, okay, under what conditions? And he set the conditions, including that they had to stay with a man in Switzerland that he knew and trusted, who was also a father. And yeah, so the partnership between Greg and I to partner with them. And then also, we didn't have agendas for them. I was asked at a really important time, "What do you want for your children?" And that was when fulfilling potential was just like potential was the buzzword, right? So we're talking about the 90s now. And parents were driving themselves like crazy to make sure their children fulfilled their potential, and they were pressuring their children to fulfill the potential their parents saw in them. And and I saw what was happening around me, and I just made the choice. No, I don't care if they fulfill their potential. It's not mine to decide. And it's something, Andy, that I learned about young men and about all men, that caring is your biggest expenditure of energy, and no one can make you care. No one can. You're so good at baseball, so commit yourself to being a professional baseball player. Or like my younger brother is a natural at linguistics. You should be an interpreter, right? Jeff, you should be an interpreter. You should be an interpreter. I mean, he taught himself 4 languages by the time he graduated high school. No, he's an organic farmer. He wants to be outdoors and in the dirt all day long, not in a bank, translating English to Japanese and Russian and German, and French and Spanish. No, he wants his kids speak Spanish and Japanese. But it's something as parents we got to we got to recognize, whose life is it? Just because you came out of my body does not make your life belong to me. I don't believe that. So my kids growing up, it's kind of funny. There's things that really annoyed them, and there's they said I took them too seriously because when they said they wanted to do something, I would figure out how to do it. And they'd be like, no, 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 no. I was just talking. I don't really want to do it. Don't take me so seriously. And I thought that was actually a good compliment to be accused of being being too quickly to get up underneath them. And but they're amazing. And I don't think they owe me anything except for certain forms of respect. And so I'm blown away by what they provide, and I'm blown away that they like me. They want to spend time with me. They want me to come for a week at Christmas. My eldest daughter's dream was that I'd live down the street. Last Friday, I bought a house down the street from her. And yeah, I'll stop myself. I could answer that question about my kids for hours. Um, yeah, we have something on our under shop products called empowered parenting and parenting in partnership. And empowered parenting is about understanding the instincts that have us do things that are so terrible for our children. But we look at it from the point of view of having been a child and why our parents couldn't give us what we wanted the most, the instincts that were having them behave the way they were behaving. And then parenting is partnership is all kinds of things about if a young person doesn't have their own room or a space, even if it's Harry Potter's closet, if they don't have a space of their own that's respected, that you don't enter without their permission, that you don't dictate how they take care of it, like that you truly respect their privacy and their domain, if they don't have that, well, they're going to leave sooner rather than later. I'll tell you that. And they're never gonna feel like a responsible human, like trusted, like a grown-up, like that they're self-determined. So I talk about things like that in parenting and partnership. And I have an experiment of three, and my grandson is the 2-year-old fourth experiment in what happens when you interact that way. And my eldest daughter she did our workshop when she was 13 years old and started volunteering and then started working and traveling with me when she was 15. And I'm watching her partner with my grandson. And oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's, I had no idea it would be such a joy to watch her be the mother that she's choosing to be. Way better mother than I was. Way better. She's a genius at it. It's amazing.
I love that, Allison. So I've been like slowly writing down questions so I won't forget and I could sort of be present. Um,
Okay.
I like the pace we're going at. I do want to go through all the questions. So my solution is we'll keep going the way we're going, and then if we run out of time, we'll do like a rapid fire.
Okay. So we have like 40 minutes still, right? Almost?
I think so, yeah,
Or
at least.
okay, good. Yeah, okay. All right.
A lot of the content I see from you, Alison, there's so much great advice on what to do if you are in a relationship and, as a man, as a female. I guess, like, as a single male, what do you think people should take away from the things you share? How can they apply it in their life when they don't have, like, a partner to, implement all the skills that you've shared?
Hmm. Women ask me that too. And the truth is, everything that I teach applies in all contexts. Whether you're interacting in partnership with a cashier at a coffee shop, or with a parent, or with a friend, an employer, an employee, if you're paying attention to, I would say, honoring yourself first, then others. And we teach a process of honoring in an online course called Lux, which is where I recommend most people start. It's only 8 hours and it happens in about 30-minute increments that are very actionable. And it teaches what you would be paying attention to and what you'd be listening for and what you'd be speaking about yourself to keep elevating in this process of honoring. And the process begins with respect. And the proposition is, I use the definition, granting innate value. That what if respect is granting innate value? And then what if you started with granting innate value to yourself? So instead of worrying about, are you worthy of other people's respect? Start with, you grant yourself respect. You decide, yes, I have innate value. And then you could go seeking that value. If we don't seek, we don't see. And if you don't believe something's there in the first place, you'll never seek it. So if you start with granting yourself respect and then seeking your value, seeing your own value, and then even start to speak for others to see you, right? And practice that with yourself and then other people, no matter what the context is. I think that's one of the things that where we go awry is thinking that the context and the age or the wealth or the education or the success or whatever of another person should determine how you interact with them, what's appropriate. And I mean, that is born out of class societies, which are a societal expression of a herd and pack instinct. That there are people with this status, and so that's what they get, and that's how you interact with them. And if you're this status, then this is how you interact with that class and that class and that class. And I mean, I like watching, right now, my boyfriend and I are watching programs that took place in England, one of them in the 1950s and 60s, and one of them right at the beginning of the car, so in the early 1900s. And there's so much about, the lords and the commoners. And what if and can you see how much it shapes our sense of self and our entitlement? And can I say horse shit on your podcast? Yeah, I think it's a mistake. And I think I especially get bent out of shape when parents are behaving in shameful ways and yet demand respect because they are your father or your mother. But they're not dignified, they're not generous, they're not thoughtful, right? Like there's so many people like bosses that demand respect who are hideous to people. So I'm much more of an egalitarian. And so like in our Smart Singles program, which is not about getting rid of being single, it's about understanding what another person would need to be to have you be better off coupling with them. Don't couple to get rid of being single. There's so many benefits of self-determination in being single. So what would someone have to contribute to you for you to be better off? And then the encouragement is to figure out what that is, what your boundaries are, how you require to be interacted with if you're going to let someone be that important to you, and then go out and interact with every person that way, requiring that of every person, not just in a romantic context. It's like going to the gym, right? You got to build this muscle of being self-honoring, no matter how attractive that person is, no matter how many things on your list they check off, no matter how many rewards you think they could give you, how many opportunities they could give you, that you're still holding your boundaries with them, like that you don't sell yourself out for anything. And it's really best to practice it everywhere, because in our romantic relationships, we're weak. We're naturally weak. We're so susceptible to the effects of chemistry and then the effects of association. Like, oh, my status will be increased by having her on my arm, by having him on my arm, right? Like, so it's not going to make for a fulfilling relationship. but those are the instincts that have us choose people and then decide to appeal to them and do whatever we perceive will appeal to them, even while dishonoring ourselves. And so back to where I thought you were going with a single man. My son, who's 37, he was actually the one in his 20s where he'd been in two long-term relationships. And he said he realized that he gave more than he got, that he was not better off for having been in those relationships. And if we do this well, it's not about who gets more and gives more. You actually end up feeling like you both got the best end of the deal because what you're receiving from that other person means so much to you, but it's relatively easy for them to give. And what you're giving them means so much to them, but you actually want to give it. So it's an upward spiral where the value of what's given and received is in context of the person receiving and giving it. And so when Jeff expressed that he'd really given so much more than he got, he felt worse off. He experienced being worse off for having spent that much energy on another person. And he decided never to do that again. And he figured out his plan for what he's looking for, what he's willing to give now. And his highest value is honor. And so he's incredibly, I mean, just beautifully honorable about, he's very upfront about what he's going to provide and what he's not going to provide. And there's a girl that he was dating when COVID launched, right, in March of 2020, and they became COVID buddies. At one point, she told him, and so they were living together in his house. And she said, "I'm afraid that when this is over, you're going to break up with me." And he said, "Yeah, I probably will." And she said, "I don't want you to break up with me." And he thought about it. He said, "Well, then you should break up with me." And it was like just honest, straight, direct. And I asked him once, like I just know she's not someone I could marry. And I said, "What is it about her that has you think that?" And it blew my mind. He said, so this would have been what, 6 years ago? So he was 31. Yeah. He said, because she has no voice. And I say more. And he's like, she doesn't know who she is and she has no voice. And that means she wouldn't get along in my family. It's like, I mean, he has two sisters and a mother who are very clear about who they are. We have voices, and he wants a woman with a voice who can stand amongst these women. And oh my God. I'm not aware of teaching these things to him, but when he did our Being Extraordinary as a Man course, he was about 26, I think, when he did Being Extraordinary as a Man. And that's when he stopped allowing women to emasculate him. They couldn't take his power no more. They couldn't hook him by being these sexual sirens, are gonna did he do anything for? Just stay away, stay away. Can you tell me a little tickle? I'm so tickled by him. It's such a pleasure to. Well, when he was born and they put him in my arms, I looked down at him and I had this vision of having sat at his feet for lifetimes, that he was my guru. And I thought, how am I ever going to be your mother? Like, you've been my teacher. How am I going to be your mother? I realized, oh, my job, knowing that he was a human male who for much of his life, the choice would be between the right thing and the fun thing. And that my job was to teach him to do the right thing, no matter what. But that he already knew what the right thing was, that he always already knew what the right thing was. I didn't have to tell him what the right thing was. I just had to teach him to choose it.
Now,
And he
Allison,
does.
for like someone like you or your son, where you guys are so amazing, Is it hard to find a partner that, you're better off being in that relationship because you guys are amazing on your own? And what's that journey like to find someone that really sort of fills your cup?
Hmm. Well, I started working on this before I met Greg, who I met a couple weeks after I committed to not emasculating men. And it completely altered how I was being. And near as I can tell, the first thing that we need is clarity. Like the process starts with clarity about yourself. And was it Iron? It was either Iron Man, Iron John, or Fire in the Belly. I forget which one. I only read like a chapter. And he said a man has to decide two things. Where am I going and who's going with me? And he must decide them in that order. If he decides them in the opposite order, he's going to be in deep trouble. And I think it's true for everybody that we each have to decide, what is my life for? What am I going to spend it on? What values am I going to organize around living? Not what I was taught, not what I heard, not what I was supposed to, but what are the values I'm organizing around? And so the clarity has to start with ourselves. And then, okay, given that, and given something we talk about in Lux, and that's the impact of being, how someone is being is, it's louder than anything they're saying. How they're being, it's even louder than anything they're doing. How they're being can make what they're doing worthless, right? If they're being all snarky about it while they're feeding you, it's like, hello. So if you, one of the things I encourage in interacting with your gender of interest is notice in every interaction, was that an interaction that you're left better off from in some way? And oh, I'm better off from having talked to that person. Okay, what was it about them that I'm better off? Oh, and oh, well, they were really friendly. Oh, and what does friendly bring out in me? I expressed myself. I was more truthful. I expressed myself more openly. Do I like being that way? Yeah. Do I want to be with someone where I get to be that way? Okay, so they need to be friendly so I can be open. Write it down. Be friendly. And so looking at ways of being, and maybe even, well, was I responding? Was I open because they were friendly, or did I start out open and they responded with friendly? No, I wasn't feeling particularly open until they were friendly. That was definitely me responding to them. But then what are ways of being I can be counted on for? And how do I need people to respond to me? Right? Like if you know how you are, is how you be is you're generous, right? Or you're inquisitive, you're curious, or you're thoughtful, or you're interested, or however it is that you be, how does someone need to respond to that for you to feel like it was received, to feel like it grew, like you became more of who you want to be because of how they responded. And you notice and you write it down, and you notice and you write it down, and you end up with ways of being, and ways of being that, as I learned over time, we can inspire people to be certain ways, but in our closest relationships that we rely the most upon, we actually need people to be ways that they generate, even when we're not great, right? That they'll be kind even when we're snarky. Does somebody have the muscle to be kind even when I'm not? And so you're looking at these ways of being, and then we look at behaviors and attitudes. So in all the important things in life, the person who's you're going to be better off with, how will they relate to your work, your business, your entrepreneurship? How will they relate to it? How will they relate to money? How will they relate to children? Do they want them? Absolutely. Are they maybe it would be okay? Are they no, not at all? When? The when is very important about children because men can't get on board for having children until they're ready to have children. And the readiness isn't how much they love their partner or how much they want children, it's where they are in their life, right? We talk about that in The Amazing Development of Men, Part 2. And so, and there's like, how do they relate to sex? How do they relate to spirituality? How do they relate to health and lifestyle? How do they, because I'm so passionate about partners restoring each other, the top of my list says committed with determination to being whole and free, provides and receives restoration. And how that ended up at the top of my list was because it drove me crazy that my husband wasn't that way. He did not generate being whole and free. He kept being, he'd get bogged down instead of be intentional about recovering himself. And so I'd have to go looking for him. And I ended up being like accountable for restoring him. And it became a tremendous burden. And I never wanted to, the top of my list says, I'm better off without someone who isn't this. Yeah, I was so much better off with Greg. And that was one of the hardest parts. So it's at the top of my list. My list has 19 ways of being and 23 behaviors and attitudes. And every single one of them are standalone deal breakers. Every single one. And Dan, who I was introduced to a little over 5 years ago, from the very beginning, he already was all but 6 of them, which was astonishing. And if you're going to find ways of being and you're going to find behaviors and attitudes that really support you, you can't be attached to they got to look a particular way, right? Or that they have a particular background or education, or like you could look at how they relate to knowledge, like how they relate to knowledge may be really important to you. But if you're a stickler for they got to have some kind of degree or something, really, how does that actually contribute? Right. So there's a lot of discernment going on. And it's been interesting, Andy, because of those 6 things, God bless him, he took on committed to being whole and free. And he has healed and released things that even his ex-wife thanks me for being in his life. And because I demand this of him. And when I met him, he had holes in him. He was not whole. He was full of holes. And then has a healthy diet and lifestyle is something that we've publicly struggled with for the last 4 years. But it's led into this whole insight into men and how women naturally pay attention to well-being and to the preservation of life, where you're the risk takers. If you don't have a purpose for having your body last longer, like something that really matters to you that you need to live to a certain age for, the instincts to go all in and at every moment, why not drink it? Why not eat it? Why not jump off of that? Why not drive that fast? It's so much a part of how you're hardwired. And it's literally taken me up until the last month. It was a month ago that I realized that my partner's disregard for his physical well-being is not a character flaw. It's not a character flaw. It's not a weakness. And he takes care of his body because I require it to be with me. I won't, no, you can't be my boyfriend, lover, supporter, playmate in life if you don't take care of your body. It's just a fact. And he wasn't taking care of his body for so long, so badly that I left. And that was really important because he knows I mean it. And now he takes care of his body. He treadmills an hour a day, 5 days a week. He'll walk with me. He's playing pickleball with his daughter. He's completely changed how he eats. He hasn't drank in 5 years, and he does it because I'm worth it. He does it because it's the price, one of the prices to be with me. And And he honors me by doing it. I'm worth him doing that. And I don't see it as a character flaw anymore. I just see it as me holding this boundary is a way to support him because it isn't built in. And it's not a character flaw. It's just my boundary. And I can maintain it now with very little energy because he knows it's absolute. So he doesn't push on it anymore. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So boundaries and respect and clarity about what we're looking for and what we won't settle. We have something called In Sync with Opposite Sex. It's the first thing I published on this topic. It's on our website. It's on Audible. I was really young. It was over 20 years ago. So my voice is a lot higher, but it's the first time I found out that I was funny. I was editing it and I was cracking up. Like, how did she get so funny? And I mean, it really, I've had a professional stand-up comedian who wanted to take me on tour with him. And understanding women is also hilarious. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Anyhow, In Sync with Opposite Sex talks about the 9 ways that men and women are out of sync to begin with, but we take it personally and misinterpret it all the time. It causes so many problems. And then what to do to get in sync. And one of the things to do is first consider what is your purpose in seeking someone to be with romantically? What is your purpose? What are you after? And at this point in your life. And then inside of that purpose, what do you need to give? Which is something we don't pay enough attention to, that we need to give. And if someone won't receive what we need to give, it's so hurtful. It's relationships are fulfilling as much by what we get to give as what we're given. And if someone doesn't value what you want to give to them, it's there's going to be so much suffering. So what do you need to give? And then what do you need to get to keep being happy giving what you need to give? So again, I'm always paying attention to upward spirals, and instincts have almost everything in a downward spiral. They all get worse, and in almost every context. So if you start with that, what do I need to give? And then what do I need to get to keep being happy giving that? And in what context do I want to give it? Do I want to do it in the context of dating, where maybe I spend a few hours with somebody once or twice a week, but we don't connect our lives in between? We just have these little pockets. That's completely legitimate. But it also talks about how hard it is for women to date. They aren't good at those little pockets. Those pockets come from single focus, which comes from testosterone. And we're not good at those pockets. We string everything together because we have diffuse awareness. And if we've seen each other for 3 hours a week for 9 months, aren't you going to ask me to marry you now? It's instinct. I'm about to have a baby. So that's how it works in there. Yeah. Yeah.
You're about
Very
to have a
dramatic.
baby. Congratulations.
Well, no, 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 no. That's what we
Oh,
think.
oh, okay.
The instinct is I've given you 9 months of my life. We got together on a full moon in the middle of the prairie. I'm about to have a baby. Uh, You should commit to taking care of me and it for the rest of our lives. And so, like, Valentine's Day is coming up, and any man who's been seeing a woman on a regular basis for 9 months, whether she articulates it or not in the back of her mind, she thinks she should be proposed to, even if she doesn't want to marry him, even if she's been beastly for 9 months. I spent my precious reproductive lifetime on you. And anyhow, these are things that we talk about and laugh about in sync with the opposite sex. But so it's all about clarity. And then after you have the clarity about what you require, then practice requiring, right? Practice holding that boundary with compassion without meanness or, electric electric fences, practice that, build the muscle so you know you can trust yourself to hold your boundaries. And now you don't have to be on guard anymore. Now you're open. And then you end up repelling the people who aren't good for you and attracting the people who want what you want. And then you decide how you want to keep expressing that. And that's the beginning of what I would say if you're a young single. If you're a single man, actually, of any age, I would say the same thing. Even men who are already married, I would say do the same thing. Start honoring yourself first. Stand up for yourself. When men stand up for themselves, when you do it and you're not shitty about it, you just no, I'm not gonna have that in my life. We're like, oh, well, didn't you just get interesting? We don't like it when you cave to us. It's scary. When you cave to us, then that makes us think we have to be the strongest one, and we know how strong we're not. And yeah, it gets really ugly from that. So don't cave. Where do you want to go now? How many things did I tick off in the process of that?
I think you ticked off quite a few, so I really appreciate that answer. Something I noticed right from the gate, you have this contagious energy, Alison. You have like these like sparkle in your eyes, and like, is this you by default? After this podcast, are you just going to be exhausted lying down? Where does this come from? Are you naturally maybe an extrovert? Yeah, Alison.
Mm. I was told many years ago by a dear friend, he said, you are an expressive introvert. And so I am expressive, but I am mostly introverted. I need a lot of alone time. I live in Dan's house, my boyfriend's house, but I have my own wing in his house. And I sleep in my own bed, and I have my own kitchen. I wake up and I have a lot of time to myself, and I need it. But I also, studying men had me fall in love with men. And then listening to men talk about women and what they love about women transformed how I see women. It had me fall in love with women and want to bring out the best in everybody. And then about 20 years ago, seems like about 20 years ago, I was investigating the power of free will. What is the potency of human will? And a mentor of mine said, the potency of one's will is determined by the degree to which you dwell in love. And when he said that, I instantly saw Martin Luther King and Mother Teresa and Mahatma Gandhi and these human beings that practiced love and compassion, and their will still is a force in the world. It, like, beyond their lifetimes, their will still causes possibilities and people doing real things. And so it was my birthday, and someone invited me to make a commitment. They said every year on my birthday, I make a commitment. Would you like to make a commitment? And I made a commitment to let go of everything that isn't love. And every year it was something different that I had to let go of. The first was arrogance. I know, and you don't. Um, and, but it's been everything from anger, gluttony, greed, pride, despair, jealousy. I mean, there are so many qualities a human can be that are not love. And I've been diligent about that for a really, really long time, and even reverse engineered what has a person feel love for themselves and for other people. And it's called causing those loving feelings. It's not about causing someone else to love you. It's about causing yourself to be able to feel love for other people and for yourself. It's also on our website, but I practice it. And essentially, Andy, I'm a messenger. And I was afraid when I started studying men that, I mean, I was so happy when I found out I was bringing out the worst in men, because it meant that what I thought of men wasn't true, that I was bringing out the worst and thinking that's who men are. And that's where I started my study. And it's where the Queen's Code starts, which I strongly recommend the audiobook because I will read it to you and recreate the movie that I literally channeled and typed. I did not write that book. And so my message ultimately is of hope, right? But it's hope based on personal responsibility and what is my part of this and what makes a difference, right? How can I be that alters what's possible in any context? And even, I think, like an engineer, like my dad and my grandfather, and even reverse engineering. Okay, how do I want to be? What is a quality I want to be? Now, okay, those are spiritual qualities. I live in a physical body in a physical paradigm. So the only way I can be a spiritual quality is if I get that quality in this body. So what can I do that when I do that, it puts that quality in my body? And it's a kind of engineering. And I learned it from listening to men who would say, I'm no good to anybody until I've had my run, right? Like they cared about being useful to other people, being of service to other people, and knew they had to do something for themselves first. And so correlated things like the number of hours of sleep it takes for me to be patient with my mother, who has just been confirmed definitely has dementia. And, and she can forget things in 2 minutes or less. And how to be patient with her. I'm sleeping a lot. And so I'm not always as intentional as I am in a conversation like this, where there's information and there's a message and there's a feel of what's possible that's my job to transmit. And there are plenty of places in the world that I go through unnoticed because I'm conserving my energy and I'm observing. I'm always learning and observing. And I'll be I'll be a quieter person when I walk down the street and see my mom. I'll be listening what's real for her and practicing compassion so I can be gentle with her because she's been really scared. Scary when you can't remember things and you don't know what you didn't remember and you like I mean it's just a lost kind of feeling and then when people are mad at you for not remembering and oh gosh, are they going to protect me? And I'm 83 years old and I'm frail and so just I'll be a different version of me, but I'll still be me. And it's one of the things my husband would tell people about me. He said, what you're getting is the real deal. She's always like this. It just may be louder or quieter. I'll swear like a sailor if that's what it takes to get through. Or my vocabulary can just upgrade itself and people will say, what's your PhD in? I'm a college dropout. Um, right? It just, I'll morph into whatever it takes to communicate, to deliver the message. And, or I might not be delivering messages right now. I might just, be spreading sunshine and butterflies.
No, I'm definitely learning so much, and I think others will too. Allison, I guess, how do other men bring out the best in females? How do I bring out the best in my sister, my mum, my female friends? Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you where it starts. And so if you go to AlisonArmstrong.com, there's under the free section, there's a free sample of the Understanding Women workshop. And it's about the first half hour of that workshop, which I think is maybe 15 hours altogether. And it's all about how do you bring out the best in women and how do you avoid bringing out the worst in women. And it has everything to do with us feeling safe. Women are at their best when they feel safe and they're at their worst when they don't feel safe. And men do things that have women feel unsafe, even terrified. And we have flight or freeze responses. And our fight responses are the scariest, but our flight responses are heartbreaking. And the freeze responses are just like, wait, where did all that beautiful energy go? It's not coming towards me anymore. And so the Understanding Women workshop is all about like how to tell what she needs now. Is she in an open state of mind and needs connection? Or is she in a committed state of mind and there's something that needs to get done? In which case you ask, how can I help? And or connective state of mind, is there anything you want me to know about you? And she might say, oh, I just want to hear you talk. Talk to me about anything while I finish putting dinner together. Tell me something about you. And then that's what she needs. But it's some form, it's always going to be some form of between men and women of choice. How can I support you? Right? How can I support you? What do you need from me now? What has you feel loved? What has you feel beautiful? With women, it's in an open state of mind, it's all about feeling. It doesn't, don't tell me factually that I'm safe statistically. That does not make me feel safe. I have to feel safe. And I've learned a lot, and it's funny in understanding women because I've learned a lot of things about like what testosterone does to a man's vision versus estrogen. And so, like, if something's moving fast, the faster it's going, the bigger the difference between a man's ability to track it and a woman's ability to track it. So, that thing you guys do where you're like driving down the freeway and you're moving in and out of cars at 70 miles an hour, and that it's just a thing to do. We're sure we're going to die. We're sure we're going to get hurt. When you move over on our side of the car, we have better peripheral vision than you do because we're more prey than predator. So when you're changing lanes this way, it looks like that car's coming at me and it's going to hit me. And so you might have picked a woman up for a date and she was lovely, and then she turns into this beast. She's terrified. And I remember my husband was coming up really fast on this truck on the highway because he wanted to get over in front of this other car that was going to come up and go really slow. And so he's trying to get over and get in and everything. And I'm just like, he's never hit a truck. 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 Like just knowing this doesn't occur to him the way it does occur to me. He's good at this. He's an amazing driver, right? He's never hit a truck, never hit a truck. But then one time driving home from Las Vegas, knowing that every time he crossed the bumps in the road, right, that I would wake up, he just got in the slow lane behind a truck and just drove really slow for like 3 hours so that I could sleep. So this was how we were kind to each other. I would give him the benefit of the doubt and try to chill my own nervous system, or he would give me what I needed to not have my nervous system activated. It can be really fun. You can really take care of each other with so much less effort than it takes to bring out the worst in each other.
I love that. I had another question I want to get your thoughts on, Allison. Just because I want to be respectful of your time. I know we penciled out, I think, 2 hours, so we have roughly around 20 minutes left, but I don't know if it's the same on your end. It might not be the same.
Actually, we said an hour and a half, and I'm due at my mother, so I need to wrap up in like 7 minutes.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Gives me
Okay.
context, so I won't go over. So, as a guy, as a man, if you were to tell me, hey, I'm not attracted to guys that wear glasses, I will get defensive and I'll be projecting because I'll be like, what do you mean I wear glasses and I'm totally a cool, fine person? So, I would get defensive in that way. So, I was at a party with some friends, and like, I'm thinking for my sister, like if my sister was at a party, I would be disappointed in her if she sort of got together with some sleaze bag that night and maybe sort of like made out with him and sort of like let that happen. I'd sort of be disappointed in my sister if that happened. So I sort of saw one of the girls sort of end up with one of the sleeves. Like I thought she was cool, but I was quite disappointed in her that she sort of ended up with this sort of sleaze bag that was, by the time he, dropped off at home, he came back to the party, he had like makeup on his like lips and he was sort of puffing his chest and showing off what he did. And
Yes.
I take this back, but I was telling these two female friends of mine, I was like, oh, I was quite, I feel like that girl, lost a few points letting that happen.
Mhm.
I take it back. I shouldn't have said that. And out of the two girls, the girl that I know would be probably more promiscuous or maybe would put herself in similar situations to that, she got really defensive and angry at me. And the other girl just didn't think much of it. And I just thought, oh, she's probably projecting because I'm inadvertently sort of criticizing her. But then upon talking to her and her friend and a few other female friends, apparently she wasn't angry and projecting. She was angry on behalf of all females. She was angry on behalf that, hey, like, I know a ton of females that might make out or hook up on the kiss on the first date and they're a really cool person. And she was not projecting. And
Right.
again and again and again, because I was like, what? Like this, it seems like she's projecting right now. But many female friends told me no. Apparently females don't project and they talk on behalf of all females.
Mm.
Is that true? Or do you think she was projecting?
Oh boy. Well, men and women both project onto the other, that they need what that you need what I need. So like a woman will project onto a man that if he's upset, he needs to be soothed. A man will project onto a woman that if she's upset, she needs to be left alone to work it out. We project onto the other person and we're absolutely off base. And given how long women have been objectified, and men are also objectified, but we've been specifically sex objectified, and how very recently we were property. I mean, in terms of human history, women being able to own property, like the house I bought last week down the street from my daughter, that my mother could not have done that. My grandmother could not have done that 100 years ago. And we were property. We were property up till about 125 years ago. We were owned. And any property that we owned became our husband's when we got married. It wasn't ours anymore. It was just gone. So there are ancestral memories and there's a lot of antagonism about our rights and our equality and our rights to make out at a party. And if I want to get laid, I have as much right to get laid as any man does. Now, that's happening in a completely different domain from what is then the effect on us for having behaved that way, right? Because as an estrogen-based organism, we will literally attach to that person by virtue of having had sex with them. Oxytocin will have us want to make him our boyfriend, even if he doesn't have any of the qualities that we need. Now, one of the things that's difficult because we're primitive, that what women are looking for in a man are all different forms of strength. We're looking for strength. So it might be physical height and musculature. It might be status strength, like how important and powerful somebody is. It might be resources. It might be intellect. If you've ever watched House MD, House MD, Dr. House is so sexy because of his integrity, because he's such an ornery son of a gun, right? And that makes him really sexy. Bad boys, just the fact that they're bad and they defy others, that is perceived as a strength. That doesn't mean they're going to make a happy life. Honestly, it's extremely superficial. And women will accuse men of being superficial, and we are equally superficial. Like, without us even knowing it, we will interpret glasses as a physical weakness. It's just an automatic interpretation. We don't even decide it. It's often not even conscious. If you really want to put yourself out there with women, you might want to consider wearing contacts And then you pull out your glasses, right? But it's just to get past that discounting and disconnect that's happening. It's literally a cave woman. There's nothing mature, enlightened, or conscious about it. But we're reacting to each other all the time that way. There's something that we put on Alison Armstrong videos on YouTube called Chemistry and Connection. And it's about how chemistry and connection displace each other, because what causes chemistry gets in the way of connection, and what causes connection displaces chemistry. But if you know what causes both of them, you can cause as much of either of them as you want when you want it. Because that's ultimately what I come down to. How do you cause what matters to you? Okay, I'm going to run because keeping my word with my mom matters. And it's been awesome to be with you. And thanks for letting me be number 250. And stay the course. Okay?
Thank you, Allison. Before you leave, where can people get more of you?
AlisonArmstrong.com. That's where all the goodies are. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Allison. I really appreciate it. You're so wise, so kind. Thank you. You're such a great person. I had a blast. Time flew by. I'm going to let you go because I want you to keep that promise. So thank you so much for your time.
I'm going to leave and then you can say goodbye to them.
Okay. Bye, Allison.